CNN Breaking News.
And good evening, I'm Erin Burnett. We are following the breaking news at this hour. The Justice Department tonight naming the former FBI Director Robert Mueller special counsel to take over the investigation into Russia's meddling in the 2016 election and possible collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. It is a major development, raising the stakes for President Trump. And it comes just one day after the revelation of a memo written by former FBI Director Jim Comey, in which he wrote that Trump asked him to end the investigation into former National Security Advisor General Michael Flynn. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein is the person who made the decision. He's the one who came out and said, we're going to name a special counsel. And he issued a statement with his reasoning, which reads in part, "My decision is not a finding that crimes have been committed or any prosecution is warranted. I have made no such determination. What I have determined is that based upon the unique circumstances, the public interest requires me to place this investigation under the authority of a person who exercises a degree of independence from the normal chain of command." Now, Robert Mueller is a decorated Marine Corps vet, headed the FBI starting 1 week before the September 11th attacks, all the way through 2013. His term extended for 2 years by President Obama. Pamela Brown is out front with this breaking news. And Pamela, the White House itself barely getting any notice on this. What are you learning?
Yes, in fact, we found out just a minute ago that the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and his team didn't notify the White House or the Attorney General Sessions about this order that basically puts Bob Mueller, former FBI director, in charge of the Russia probe until after that order was signed. So very little notice given to both the Attorney General as well as the White House. And this is a significant step for the Deputy Attorney General to take himself and the Department of Justice out of the equation area and hand the reins to outside special counsel. This is very rare. This hasn't happened in the last several years. In fact, the last time outside special counsel was brought in was 2003. But reading the statement from Rod Rosenstein, it is clear he made this decision because he thought it was in the best interest of the public, particularly when you look at the last week and all of the developments. The latest one, of course, Aaron, is this revelation that former FBI Director Comey wrote in his memo that President Trump asked him in February to end the Michael Flynn probe. So it appears that factored into the decision. We can tell you through talking to our sources, my colleague Evan Perez and I, Rod Rosenstein had been considering appointing outside special counsel since just after the firing of James Comey last Tuesday. In fact, Bob Mueller, who was now taking over the investigation, was set to meet with Rosenstein last Wednesday, the day after the firing. And so this had been in the works for a while. But as of late Friday, Rosenstein was still telling people that he didn't think it was necessary to appoint special counsel. So it does appear, Aaron, that this latest revelation could have been a tipping point, but certainly a significant development from the Department of Justice, Aaron.
Right. Obviously, the big question is, what was it? Was it the revelation of these memos or not? Pamela, thank you very much. And let's go to Evan Perez now, also in Washington. And Evan, look, I think everyone, hears these words thrown around: special prosecutor, special counsel. The bottom line question, though, is what does it mean? It is a big deal. But what does it mean when you look at all the investigations that are currently going on?
Well, one of the things it means, Aaron, is that this is an investigation that is now just plainly independent. And that's good news for the people at the FBI who've been very concerned about, since the firing of James Comey, that perhaps this might affect the investigation or the independence of the investigation, or at least the appearance of that independence, which is very, very important to what they end up finding. But with the appointment here of Mueller, look, he's empowered now to do whatever he wants. He can bring in staff. He can use the current staff that's handling the investigation. He's going to work with the FBI agents who've already been doing this investigation. But more importantly, it definitely reassures the agents at the FBI and the people at Justice Department who've been just very concerned that the firing of Comey would at least damage the appearance of their independence. But this is bad news if you're at the White House, because now you have no idea where this is going. And one of the first things Mueller is going to have to do, Aaron, is decide whether or not to turn over these memos that James Comey said he used to memorialize his conversations with Donald Trump. Now, the members of Congress have already written letters to the FBI asking for those to be turned over, I think as soon as next Wednesday. Mueller is now in charge of making the decision whether that is going to be part of his investigation. And that's going to tell us something. That means if we find out that he says you can't have those, that means he's investigating whether or not there was any interference with this investigation.
Right, and that's a crucial question. Now, just, Evan, a follow-up here as we all try to understand exactly what this does mean, right? You see that Mueller was appointed by the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who, of course, was appointed by the President of the United States. When you say independent, is it truly and fully independent, or would they have the ability to fire him, or you know, could you just put a little color around that?
Well, this is a part of a special law that was passed after the expiration of the Independent Counsel law in 1999. So really, this means that he is truly independent, and that's why there's so much reluctance usually by the Justice Department to bring in a special counsel, because you don't know where this is going to end up, and certainly for the White House, this is the last thing they wanted to see.
So he answers to no one, which is obviously the crucial point. All right, Evan Perez, thank you. Evan is obviously in the midst of breaking news. As we get more, we're going to get that from him. Jeff Zelany's out front at the White House, and Jeff, you know, you heard what Evan just said. Not good news for the White House, because they really won't have any idea what's going on. We're hearing that they got less than 1 hour notice, and they weren't even told until the document was signed. We have signed it. It is done. What's the reaction there?
Well, Aaron, just to set the scene inside the West Wing, the president at this very moment that it was signed was interviewing candidates for the FBI director. He was going through the process of doing that. He still had control over this. And I was talking to a senior administration official. They are still sort of getting their hands around this, Aaron, but you are right. They had less than an hour to deal with this. But one official told me it's still sinking in. But we were told about it, not asked about it. And they said the president specifically was described as sort of shocked by this, but also is seeing yet again, for one more time, the limits of his presidential authority, presidential power here in the executive branch. We cannot point out enough, Aaron. This is the third straight consecutive evening of blows to this White House. Now, this, of course, would seem to be the most far-reaching of all, because it does, as Evan and Pamela were reporting, it takes control away from the White House. Any White House, any administration, certainly in a time of uncertainty and crisis like this, they like to control things as much as possible. This takes that control away here. So, you know, Sean Spicer only 2 days ago at the White House press briefing, he said this about the idea of a special counsel. He said, there's frankly no need for a special prosecutor. We've discussed this before. You have 2 Senate committees, the FBI investigation. There's no need for it. So that was the view of this White House. It was not needed. Well, tonight, Aaron, they were told that it was happening. The question if it was needed or not is a moot point. At this point, the White House scrambling. They were having some briefings to talk about the next thing up on the president's agenda, his foreign trip. He's leaving on Friday for Saudi Arabia, 4 other countries. Some of those briefings have been put on hold. The West Wing is trying to figure out how to respond to this. We're not sure if we're going to hear from the president this evening or not, but it's a stunned White House once again, Aaron.
Stunned White House again. And thank you very much, Jeff Zelany. And I just want everyone to know, we just got a statement from Bob Mueller, immediately resigning from his job as a lawyer today to take this new responsibility. And his statement, quote, "I accept this responsibility and will discharge it to the best of my ability." Bob Mueller, just to remind everyone here, FBI director from 2001, right before September 11th, to 2013 under George W. Bush and Barack Obama, the second longest serving FBI director in American history, widely respected and applauded by members of both parties. Joining me now, Jeffrey Toobin, our senior legal analyst, Chris Swecker, former assistant FBI director who served under Mueller, Eric Lischblow, CNN assistant managing editor for investigative projects, Gloria Borger, our chief political analyst, David Gergen, who advised 4 presidents, and John Avlon, the editor-in-chief of The Daily Beast. Jeffrey, he says, "I accept this responsibility. Will discharge it to the best of my ability." How big of a development is this? And as Evan said, it is truly independent.
It is not. It is a major development because of the nomination of any special counsel. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it's Bob Mueller makes it even more significant because, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, this is the single most respected figure in American law enforcement. You know, it's not just the 12 years at the FBI. all of which went by without a scandal or a hint of personal controversy involving Mueller himself. Head of the Criminal Division of the Justice Department, U.S. Attorney in San Francisco, U.S. Attorney in Boston. I mean, this is someone who really embodies the best of the American criminal justice system, and the chips are going to fall where they may. I mean, I think people who think a crime was committed, they'll learn whether it was, and if a crime wasn't committed, we'll learn that too.
So let me just ask you, Chris Swecker, because you know Bob Mueller. What do you think the first thing he's going to do here is?
Well, the winners today are the American people, because Robert Mueller will handpick his team. I mean, he's a thorough professional. He's a good attorney. He won't be in the press. He will very quietly handpick a team. They'll be in a separate space away from FBI headquarters, and he will methodically, professionally, quietly get to the bottom of this. And this is the best news we've heard. I think it addresses the whole perception out there that someone outside the FBI had control of this investigation, which I dispute. I don't think that anybody outside the FBI had any control of the investigation other than the Department of Justice. But putting Robert Mueller in there is, I think everybody's a winner today.
So let me ask you, Jeff, just on so we can really understand what this means, okay? So we know the House and Senate investigations will continue.
Correct.
All right. So in a sense, there's this weird competing for testimony and all this strangeness that's still going on. But do we know fully what's a part of this? For example, is Jim Comey's firing part of this? Jim Comey's memos, or is that all yet to be determined? Trump's sharing of classified information to the Russians. Do we know the borderline?
We don't know the borderline, but we do know this: the person who decides what the borderline is going to be Bob Mueller. And I don't envision any scenario where those subjects you just mentioned would not be included within his jurisdiction. I mean, it's all related. It all relates to the possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia and the attempts to cover that up, if there were any such attempts. I mean, it's all the same story. And Mueller's going to have to deal with it all.
So let me ask you, Eric, because I know you know Jim Comey. Look, there's a story here from 2013 from Washingtonian, Forged Under Fire, Bob Mueller and Jim Comey's unusual friendship. When Comey replaced Mueller as the FBI, because he was the person who came in, according to the Washington Post, Mueller said of Jim Comey, he was a good friend, an excellent choice, and a superb prosecutor. You now have the former director of the FBI, Jim Comey, saying the president said something. The president says Jim Comey is lying. Is Mueller's relationship with Comey an issue here, Eric?
I think that's an excellent point. But I would not disregard the strength of their bond and the impact that could have on the way this investigation goes. They worked side by side for years after 9/11, really through the fire together. They were involved in the famous scenes over the Bush eavesdropping program together, side by side again. Tremendous mutual respect and friendship. And so when you have Jim Comey fired after writing the memo that he did, I would have to think Bob Mueller is going to put a lot of weight into that.
And let me ask you, David Gergen, about the significance of that, right? I mean, Bob Mueller, a man no one is besmirching his reputation or his integrity, but obviously a friendship this deep and long, when you have one person saying something and the other person saying it's a lie, could be deeply significant.
Well, it could be significant. Let's go back to the beginning of this. I want to join the chorus in saying this is very good news for the country. It's the most reassuring step that the Trump administration has taken since this whole controversy began. It will begin to restore trust in the process and in the outcome. And in that sense, I do think that a lot of credit goes to Mr. Rosenstein, who was so vilified because he got dragged in by the president and then Jeff Sessions into writing that statement when Comey was fired. This was a good move by him, and I assume, Aaron, he knew of the friendship. He had to weigh that in making the appointment. He nonetheless turned to Mueller because he must have assumed, as Jeffrey has said, of others have said, Bob Mueller is so highly respected that I think he did not feel that this would impede or influence or color the outcome.
So, John, what do you think happened? Because as Pamela pointed out, Rod Rosenstein has said a special prosecutor was not necessary, right? He said so as recently as last Friday, as we understand, telling people that he didn't see the need. Obviously, since then, we learned of Trump telling classified information in the White House, and we learned of Comey's memos. Those are the two big pieces of news we all know happened between now and Friday. Is that what is the determining factor here, that Rod Rosenstein said, okay, Uncle?
I mean, those are massive bombshells in this accelerating news cycle, but I think particularly the presence of the Comey memo forces the hand. The calculus, political calculus, has changed on Capitol Hill. And I do think that while this is a great reminder that we are a nation of laws, not men, that clearly Rod Rosenstein felt that action needed to be taken, not in conjunction or coordination with the Trump White House. The Trump White House did not send this stabilizing signal. The Justice Department did, the number two, because the Attorney General has had to recuse himself. I think the selection of Mueller is stabilizing. It will give Republicans some breathing room to compartmentalize this. But this is a significant step, and it comes from the heart of the Justice Department, not the Trump White House.
And Gloria, to the Trump White House here, this, you know, we're barely 90 minutes in here to knowing this. They got a little bit more warning than that. But we don't yet have a formal response, which is a very significant thing, right? They have not decided what to say.
Right, and we're waiting for that. I mean, as Jeff Zeleny pointed out earlier, Sean Spicer has been saying there's no need for any kind of special counsel.
As recently as Monday, yeah.
Right, so there's no need for a special counsel. So look, this isn't going to be welcome news at the White House. This means this investigation is going to be long and deep, and it's not going to be over quickly. And I think you can only look at Donald Trump for that, because I agree with John Avlon that something happened with that Comey memo that probably made Rod Rosenstein change his mind.
Yeah.
And on Capitol Hill now, I would also add that this does give everybody a little bit of breathing room here, that the Democrats obviously applaud this, and the Republicans who weren't much interested in a special counsel can now say, well, this is being investigated by a special counsel. I just heard from a top Senate Democratic aide who said to me, it's amazing to watch Republicans go from we don't need one to he's awesome. And that is exactly what's happening on the Hill right now. So Republicans are going to applaud this as well.
All right, so many more questions. I want to, just as we get more breaking news here, go to our Justice reporter, Laura Jarrett, who was actually in the briefing at the Justice Department when they made this announcement. And Laura, you're learning a little bit more about this crucial question, right? The timing of the decision and when Rod Rosenstein informed the White House.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Aaron. I'm learning that the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, informed the president after the order was signed. The order was signed today, and then the White House counsel's office was informed by the Deputy Attorney General's office. I'm also informed that Attorney General Jeff Sessions was informed after Rod Rosenstein signed the order. So a little bit of interesting timing there. The Deputy Attorney General really did all of this before any heads up was given to the White House or the Attorney General. So an interesting development there on the timing. We're also learning more about the scope of Bob Mueller's investigation. As you know, this has to do with the Russia connection as outlined in the announcement we received from DOJ today. But he has wide latitude to decide what's within that scope, Aaron, which is an important development.
Very important. All right, Laura, thank you very much. And I think among the many little new tidbits there, I think, was Laura's reporting that Jeff Sessions himself did not know until after his deputy had signed this order naming the special counsel. I want to go to Manu Raju on Capitol Hill. And Manu, across the board reaction here, Democrats had actually been threatening, right? They're saying they're going to block a new FBI director until they got a special prosecutor. Okay, they got it. What now?
Well, less likely that new FBI director will be blocked by Senate Democrats for one reason, because there is a special prosecutor. They had been demanding that as a condition to move forward. Now I'm hearing from Democratic sources, including senators, that they're less inclined to do that. Now we have to wait to see who that nominee is, and if it's someone who could be polarizing, they still could try to block a nominee, and that would of course require Republicans also to defect. But right now, this is good news for Donald Trump in getting his own FBI director eventually confirmed. Now, Aaron, this also will help Rod Rosenstein tomorrow when he comes before the Senate, briefs all 100 senators, because Democrats had planned to pepper Rosenstein with questions tomorrow about naming a special prosecutor. I'm told by senators who were at a private meeting today at Chuck Schumer's office, they came up with a strategy to really pressure Rosenstein on the issue of a special prosecutor. And now that he's named one, it will take the heat off him tomorrow on that key question. So Democrats are feeling a little better. Republicans, too. Even the Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Richard Burr feeling good about moving the investigation forward now that this question seems to have been resolved for now.
All right. Thank you very much, Manu. And